Right. Oh, it's really good. Hello and welcome to My Tiny Bottles, the project where I'm exploring my grandmother's legacy of miniature liquor bottles, one tiny bottle at a time, or 3 today. I'm your host, Tammy Coxon, and I'm here today with Bea Bradsell. Bea, how about you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bea Bradsell. I'm director of The Drink Cabinet, which is a creative agency based out of Scotland and London. I am also daughter of Dick Bradsell, the creator of the espresso martini.
And also like a really important person in British mixology, right? I talk about him in my cocktail classes, even kind of before I knew about the espresso martini, just as the person who kind of created the modern craft, really set the groundwork for the modern craft cocktail renaissance here.
Yeah, he completely changed the faces. Before my dad was working in bars, it was definitely much more, cocktails were pretty much exclusively in hotel bars. And my dad really, it was kind of one of his great wishes. We've got in our book, Dick Tales, you can see, you've got letters of him like really like wanting to champion the idea that the average person should be able to drink cocktails. And I definitely think he's achieved his goal.
He sure has. Well, the espresso martini famously was created when someone came in and asked for a drink to wake her up and then mess her up, shall we say, for the videos. And he pulled a shot of espresso, mixed it with some coffee liqueur and some vodka. Do I have that right?
A little bit of sugar, shook it up, and it was original one was actually called the vodka espresso, and it was served on the rocks. That coffee liqueur was Coloma. That was the first one he used, and then he worked on his recipe over time, kept working on it. He was kind of emulating the Brandy Alexander, wanting to have the best dessert cocktail he possibly could. So he worked with different coffee liqueurs to get that perfect kind of fully rounded mouthfeel, real decadence there. So his final recipe was Kahlua and Tia Maria.
Yeah, and this is really annoying. It's like when I've been developing a cocktail and I'm like, does it need a lemon twist or an orange twist? And you try one of each and then you're like, put them together and you're like, God damn it, I need to be super pretentious and call for 2 twists.
It happens sometimes. Everything has a little bit of its own little perfect element, and everything brings something to the table.
Sure does.
But yeah, he worked on it it was a drink that he kept developing for I think it was about 15 years until he finally settled on his recipe and went forward with that.
And then it took over the world.
Well, it still took time. It wasn't till 2016 that it really took off in the UK, and then post-COVID in America.
Really? I thought it maybe had a peak in the UK in the 90s, sort of shortly after you created it. No, not really until
2016. Okay. Australia, it took off much earlier. I think Australia kept the flag flying for it for a really long time. And then, the UK, it was always on menus, but nowhere near the way it is now. Like, you have to have an espresso martini. Right. It definitely wasn't the case when I started bartending.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of it until relatively recently. All right, well, since Tia Maria was one of the liqueurs that he used, we're going to start our tasting of 3 different coffee liqueurs with that, because I could not think of anyone better to taste coffee liqueur with than you. This bottle, what I know about it is that it's probably from the early 70s, but possibly into the 60s. It's really hard to get a beginning date, but we know my grandmother started collecting around that time period. It's probably not much before that. The great thing about that is it's from old enough that it's still high alcohol, 31.5%, with, we think, a Jamaican rum base, not just a touch of Jamaican rum like now, and Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee. So you told me that
I have tried it before. It was one of the best coffee liqueurs I've ever tried in my life. It was amazing. Jamaican Blue Mountain is my favorite coffee. So, I mean, it was actually a match made in heaven for me. It's really, really delicious, really sumptuous, got a really deep coffee flavor, which is what Jamaican Blue Mountain's known for, that kind of really rich, deep notes and very little acidity to it. So it makes quite a unique coffee liqueur on there. Really works well with the rum.
All right, well, you may be very well positioned to say how well this one stood up. They weren't stored well. They were just on shelves in my grandmother's, cottage, basically. And then I feel like these probably went through some freeze-thaw cycles during storage after she died. So Smells
It
delicious.
smells delicious. It smells a little stronger than when I've had it before. Oh, it's got a lot of vanilla on that.
Yeah. Right. First you get the coffee, then you get the vanilla. I don't get much rum.
I can see it. There's like some treaclier notes around the edges.
Okay.
It's definitely not it's not super pronounced. But there's definitely some, you can smell some rum in there. But I mean, I'm getting a big old vanilla bomb, really, for me.
Yep. I can't argue with that. Smells delicious. Shall we just go straight in?
Let's go straight
All
in.
right.
The viscosity on that's amazing. Kind of really what you want from your coffee liqueurs. Definitely these, one of the things that these, well, they're called old world coffee liqueurs now. They've got a fantastic viscosity to them, and that's like when you're making an espresso martini, you really want that body to it to bring out that cocktail. And this is definitely seeing that. I think you're getting more rum on the tasting.
A little
Getting
bit.
a little bit of that spice hint coming through.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I don't know, surprised me. I mean, it smelled very much like coffee. The first hit on my tongue was coffee, but then the coffee kind of almost disappeared. And I think you do get the rum and you get the sugar. And I think that's, this is higher proof than most coffee liqueurs today. So there's just a higher proportion of rum in here.
Yeah, I think you still get, I think what you're not getting is the acidity of some coffees, which, I mean, I think in both the kind of the style of it and also the coffee that they've used on it, you're not getting what you would get with kind of a more modern coffee liqueur where you're getting kind of more floral notes and more acids coming through. Quite a lot of modern coffee liqueurs, you get a little bit of citrus on there, which this is not coming through at all. This is big, punchy, bold vanillas, almost like dark fruits on there as well. Which, I mean, it's delicious.
Yeah, I feel like my second sip, I got even more, right? And I got these like chocolatey notes on the finish on that second sip.
I mean, I haven't had a sip for a while. I'm still getting chocolate.
Yeah.
It's still developing.
Yeah.
It's still got, it might be a little bit of oxidization in there that you've got this kind of lingering chocolate.
But not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way.
Right.
Like it's oxidized and made it delicious. It tastes pretty similar to what I've got at home. I think this might even be a little fresher than the one that I had.
Okay.
But it's, because I think the one I had was gotten off of eBay and don't know how it was stored, but this is, I mean, this is
That's
definitely, you're getting all of those
delicious.
fresh notes in there.
All right, I'm going to save a little bit of that. All right, so from there, I think we're going to go to this bottle next. So this is Coloma. So this is a Colombian coffee liqueur. And the company behind this has this amazing story that I talk about in my episode, actually about a mint liqueur that they make, where there's like scandals and paternity suits and deathbed DNA tests, and it's kind of and like international diplomatic scandals. So it's pretty awesome. But they started as a coffee hacienda, the sort of company, and making coffee, and then eventually coffee liqueur. And then as they grew, they sort of branched out into other kinds of spirits and all these spin-off companies. So this is, I think, from the 90s. It has a US government warning label on it, so that would put it after 1989. And it's also got a rum base and 100% Colombian coffee. So
Sounds delightful.
let's give it a go. Okay, also very well sealed. Moment when you get the crack is so satisfying and relaxing, because it means we don't have to run off and find tools. Wow, totally different color on this one.
Oh, wow.
Look how deep that is.
I'm just going to guess now that maybe I've had some caramel coloring added.
Right, to get that depth of color.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see what the proof is. 20%. So much lower in proof.
Because, I mean, that's darker than the coffee liqueurs you even get today.
Right.
It's thick.
Yes. But so was our...
I mean, that definitely had viscosity, but it was
Yeah,
I mean, they both...
Yeah, they're very sticky legs where these
Yeah.
are running down definitely a
Yeah.
little faster. And that's, given the alcohol difference, that's going to be the additional sugar giving it the legs in this one. All right, so our first prediction is sweeter.
Ooh,
Less vanilla.
less vanilla. Christmas cake.
Again.
Getting some Christmas cake here.
And this one's only, 30-ish years
Yeah.
old.
It's got definitely some chocolate, more cacao-y than
Right, dark chocolate kind of aroma.
It's got like a little bit of that dusty cacao note to it. I'm actually getting a little bit more spirit on there, maybe as well, which, as it's lower ABV, is
Kind of surprising.
surprising.
Yeah. Chocolate, like almost a little smoke. Like a roasty note when I get
Yeah.
like real deep in there.
Yeah, like a brewed coffee.
Right.
Like, it smells like your morning cup of coffee.
Right. Or maybe like when you use a drip maker and the drops fall on the burner.
Yes,
And
that's what it is. Yeah.
It smells like. I
And
don't
it's just like, it smells like American coffee. And I don't know what I mean by that, but I mean drip coffee. That's what I mean.
That's what you mean.
We tend to have less drip coffee over here.
Smartly so. All right. I'm going in.
Ooh.
Well, it's got all that acid that was missing from the last one.
I feel like this might have oxidized a bit.
Yeah.
It's got some quite tart notes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite acidic. It could almost like a red currant, maybe.
Yes. Right. Red fruits, berries.
Red fruits. It's coffee in a different way. It's almost like coffee flavoring rather than a fresh coffee.
I was going to say it like mostly doesn't taste like coffee to me.
No.
Right? Doesn't
It's got
barely
some,
reminds me of coffee.
bits around the gums that are sticking that it's like someone has said you are drinking coffee, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's almost like a coffee candle.
That's funny. So again, on my second sip, I get a little more. This is the lesson, right? You got to take at least 2 sips of something to properly taste it.
I mean, it's definitely got a thickness to it.
Yep.
It's
Maybe because of the acid, it doesn't taste as sweet as we thought it might.
I'm getting. I don't. It almost seems a little barrel aged in a weird way.
And they might have barrel aged it. Yes, I think they do barrel age it because then they, at least in later years, they started, more recently, they've started making a rum that they age in the barrels they use to age this. So you're right, barrel aged.
Yeah.
Nice
Picking
job.
out those little tasting notes.
Can tell you're a professional.
So yeah, it's got some of those characteristics you'd expect from a wood, which is I think probably where some of that chocolate's coming
Yep.
from. Definitely less of a vanilla bomb. Yeah, I think it's not really coffee flavor. It is.
No.
It's synthetic coffee. Like if you're having coffee flavored sweets or coffee caramel, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And then there is that tartness to it, which I feel like was not originally intended to be in there.
And where would that come from, sort of in the aging period? Like in the sitting in the bottle period,
I think
I guess.
probably a bit of oxidization in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you less from a spirits world and more from a coffee perspective, if you let coffee sit for a while, it'll take on that kind of more kind of that's almost what it tastes like, a bit like an espresso that you've let sit out for a while.
Interesting. All right. Well, number 3 takes us in a different direction. So this is a Canadian coffee liqueur from McGuinness Distillers. And I was able to pinpoint this one probably in the 1980s.
Perfect for an espresso martini then.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really funny. Its name is Cafe Noir. And that is a really challenging search term, as you might imagine, right? Drop that into the internet, you don't get coffee liqueurs from the 80s. So it was definitely an adventure to track this one down. But that's why I can kind of only guess on it. Looks nice and dark. Again, really good seal, glass bottle. So many of my things are packaged in plastic, which and the tastings of those are not nearly as fun. That's what I want to say. So, all right, well, let's dive in. Brandy base. What do you know about brandy base coffee liqueurs?
I've not had a huge amount of them. They add a different element to it. So you tend, you get a bit more, but I mean, I say I don't know. I actually made my own last year. So I did some work with a brandy to create our own coffee liqueur in Dubai. It was lots of fun. But it's, so you get a different element. It's, but sometimes if you're using a brandy, they're trying to bring more of that brandy flavor out in it. Like there's a reason they haven't used rum or they haven't used a neutral spirit or a vodka. So they're trying to give a bit of that brandy cognac flavor to it, which, I mean, I do think you're getting a little bit, like, it definitely is different on the nose to the others.
I found like swirling it was really important. I got almost nothing right away, but as it's getting a little bit more air, then I'm getting a lot more coffee out and some of that vanilla in there too. But at first I just got alcohol heat.
Yeah,
not really any flavor.
It's got quite a lot of, I think the spirit used in it probably isn't as high quality as the other two.
It's 26.5, so it's higher proof than the Coloma and lower proof than the Tia Maria. Interesting side note, this company that's ultimately behind this, there's a whole bunch of changes of ownership, but they had a 40% stake in Tia Maria for a whole bunch of years, like, a few decades.
I think it's got more like a candy sweetness to it.
Okay.
It's not necessarily vanilla or chocolate, but it's like burnt toffee.
Okay.
Bit of chocolate in there. Mm-hmm. There's definitely a bit of an alcohol burn coming through.
Right, that we didn't get nearly so much on the other ones.
No.
Well, interested if that passes through. Right. Oh, it's really good.
It's completely different to the other two.
Yep.
You got a lot of viscosity on it. I would say it's quite a light coffee flavor, but it definitely tastes more like coffee than coffee flavoring.
Right.
There is a little acidity, but nowhere near as much as the previous.
It's almost kind of like smacked in the middle.
Yeah. It's let's have a bit of water to.
The Tia Maria is so good.
I mean, I do think. I mean, I would use that.
This is good.
I would definitely use
like
that.
it. I think it's got a nice balance of coffee flavor and the other things going on. I feel it's more coffee forward than the Tia Maria was.
There's a sugariness to it that makes, like, it reminds me of a creme liqueur rather than kind of definitely modern coffee liqueurs who tend to be quite light in sugar.
Right.
This is not that.
No. And in the time period, light in sugar is not what they would have been going for.
I do think it's got more of a brown sugar note to it, which could come from the brandy, but I mean, I would expect to find it more on the rums, and you're getting it definitely here. I think there's a lightness to it. Like the viscosity is coming from the sugar rather than the spirit.
It's done really interesting things on the side of our glasses, right? Like, I think you're right. Like the sugar content is really high, but somehow it doesn't taste super sweet.
No.
I wonder if there's like glycerin or something.
It's
almost.
It's like they've done like a coffee infusion on it. It like tastes like a coffee sugar rather than any like distilled. for how heavy the alcohol was on the nose, I actually don't think it's that strong on the palate. There's like a little gentle burn.
Right, but it
it's
kind of
not.
gets covered up with all the rest.
I mean, definitely the sugar is doing the majority of the work there. But I've definitely tasted worse coffee liqueurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Which one would you pick to make an espresso martini?
I mean, so I actually have a thing with the Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee is that when you're working with espresso, it is actually too smooth.
Yeah.
So I think moving away from the Jamaican Blue Mountain was actually a good call.
Once they had to focus on making espresso martinis rather than on just drinking it.
I think so. I actually think this one would probably make a better espresso martini because you're getting a bit more of what you're looking for the coffee liqueur element of an espresso martini.
That's what I thought too. And also like you might be able to not use the sugar because it's got the higher sweetness level and that viscosity that the sugar is also bringing to the drink, right? Like you could.
Yeah. You definitely wouldn't need to add additional sugar to this. I think one of the things, so I've tried making my own coffee liqueur with Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee before and it was too balanced.
Right.
It was too perfect. And then when you added it to espresso, the espresso just ended up tasting super acidic, which is not what you want. You kind of want a bit more acidity from your coffee liqueur so the espresso can shine through.
Right.
So this kind of gives a bit of that. I think it's not as refined as that beautiful 1970s Tia Maria, but it's I think it's better for use. If I was just sipping at home, I would choose the 70s Tia Maria every time. So the fact that I still have half a bottle at home is a miracle. But it is, it's...
for sipping, that is totally the winner. I agree with you on mixing for this one. And we could put this in coffee. That'd probably...
Because then that would add coffee flavor to it.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, thank you so much for this. Anything else people should know about you?
So if you want to check out my company's website, we are thedrinkcabinet.co.uk. We do lots of fun different drinks campaigns and events. And then if you would like to check out my book, you can find it through most good retailers. You can definitely find it on Amazon. It's called Dick Tales.
Great title.
Yes. And then I am letter Bea Bradsell on Instagram.
And we will put all of those links to all of those things in the show notes and the episode description. And of course, if you want to find me, you can do that at mytinybottles.com, where you'll find all of these bottles that we've tasted. You'll find their own little individual stories and videos about them. And then you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as My Tiny Bottles and on Blue Sky as Tammy Coxon. If you've been watching for a while, thank you for your support. Remember that you can become a Patreon supporter and get even more bonus content and extra features. Like, subscribe, share, all the things. Thank you so much, Bea. Thank you so much to Sip Smith Distillery for hosting us here today in London. And cheers.
I'm choosing the Tia.
All right. My Tia is almost empty, but I got one last drink.